You know that sinking feeling when you're standing next to someone and you know you should say something, but your brain completely shuts down? You default to, "How's your day?" They give you a one-word answer, and you both stand there in painful silence, wishing you were anywhere else. If this sounds familiar, you're not alone, but you're also doing small talk completely wrong. Here's what this video is about. I'm going to show you why that awkward silence happens, reveal the psychology behind what confident people do differently, and by the very end, give you a simple three-word phrase that can turn any dead conversation into an engaging one. But here's the thing. Most people think they're bad at small talk because they don't have interesting things to say. That's not the problem. Most people think small talk is about having interesting things to say. Wrong. They think it's about being charming or witty. Also wrong. The real secret isn't about what you say at all. It's about what you notice. However, there's a specific way to turn what you notice into conversation gold, and that's what most people completely mess up. Let me paint you a picture. You're at a networking event, coffee shop, or party. Someone's standing near you and you know you should say something, but your brain goes blank. So you default to "How's your day?" or "What do you do?" The conversational equivalent of plain toast. The other person gives you a one-word answer. You both stand there awkwardly and you think, "I'm terrible at this." But here's what's actually happening. You're treating the other person like a computer that needs the right input command. You're not connecting with a human being. You're trying to execute a social program. The confident people around you aren't using magic. They're not naturally charismatic. They're doing something completely different that you can learn in the next few minutes. However, before I show you what they're doing, you need to understand why your current approach fails so spectacularly. When you ask generic questions, you're putting pressure on the other person to perform. They have to think of an interesting answer, worry about how they sound, and essentially carry the conversation for you. It's exhausting for them, which is why they shut down. But then I discovered something fascinating. Watch what happens when you shift from asking questions to making observations. Instead of, "What are you reading?" you say, "That book looks like it survived a few coffee spills." Instead of, "How's work?" you say, "You have the look of someone who just survived a Monday morning meeting." This works because you're removing pressure and adding curiosity. You're not demanding they explain themselves. You're simply noticing something and sharing that observation. Therefore, they can engage or not, without feeling like they're being interviewed. But here's where most people still mess this up. They make boring observations. "Nice weather today." "That's a cool shirt." These are observations technically, but they're conversation killers because they don't invite engagement. The difference between a conversation starter and a conversation killer comes down to three specific elements that I'm about to show you. However, before we get there, let me ask you something. If this is helping you see small talk differently, hit that like button and subscribe because I break down social psychology like this every week. Also, drop a comment and tell me your worst small talk experience. I read every single comment. The three elements of magnetic observations are specificity, slight exaggeration, and implied story. Let me break these down. Specificity means you're noticing details others miss. Not nice shoes, but those shoes look like they could survive a zombie apocalypse. You're being precise about what caught your attention. Slight exaggeration adds energy and humor without being over the top. Instead of "you look tired," try "you have the expression of someone who just discovered their coffee was decaf." It's dramatic enough to be interesting, but relatable enough to feel genuine. Implied story means your observation hints at something bigger. "That laptop has seen some adventures," suggests there's a story behind all those stickers. You're creating curiosity about their experience without directly asking for it. But then something interesting happens when you combine all three. Your observations become conversation magnets because you're not just commenting, you're painting a picture that the other person wants to either confirm or correct. Therefore, they naturally start sharing without feeling pressured. However, here's where it gets really powerful. You can layer these observations to create conversation threads that people actually want to follow. Instead of one comment and done, you're building a dialogue. For example, you notice someone at a bookstore holding three completely different genres. Your observation: that's either the most eclectic reading list ever, Or you're shopping for 3 very different people. They laugh and explain they're getting books for family members. But then you follow up with, "That's either really thoughtful or you're trying to win favorite family member status." Now you're not just making small talk, you're creating a playful dynamic. The key is reading their energy and adjusting accordingly. If they seem rushed, keep it brief. If they're engaging, you can build on the conversation. Therefore, you're not forcing anything, you're responding to what they're giving you. This works in professional settings too. Instead of, "How's the project going?" try, "You have the focused look of someone either solving a puzzle or planning someone's demise." It's professional enough for the workplace, but interesting enough to break the monotony. The beauty is that once you start thinking this way, you'll notice conversation opportunities everywhere. However, there's one specific phrase that ties all of this together. The 3-word conversation starter I promised you at the beginning. The 3-word phrase, 7 to 8. But then you need to understand how to deploy this phrase correctly because context is everything. The 3 words are, "I bet that." "I bet that coffee has saved your morning." "I bet that book choice has a story." "I bet that presentation didn't go as planned." This phrase is magical because it does 3 things simultaneously. First, it makes an observation about their experience. Second, it shows you're paying attention to them as an individual. Third, it creates a natural opening for them to share without feeling interrogated. However, the real power isn't in the phrase itself. It's in how it forces you to actually observe and engage with the person in front of you. When you start sentences with "I bet that," your brain automatically looks for something specific and interesting to complete the thought. Therefore, you stop defaulting to generic questions and start making genuine connections based on what you actually notice about someone. The phrase becomes a bridge between observation and conversation. But here's the secret that changes everything. The goal isn't to become a small talk expert. The goal is to become someone who makes others feel seen and interesting. When you master this approach, small talk transforms from something you endure into something you actually enjoy. The next time you're in a situation where conversation feels forced, remember this. You don't need to be interesting. You need to be interested. Look for one specific detail, add a touch of playful exaggeration, imply there's more to the story, and start with, "I bet that." The conversation will unfold naturally from there. Most guys think they're bad at talking to girls. They're wrong. That's not the problem at all. The real problem is something nobody ever teaches you, and it's quietly killing your first impressions, your talking stages, and every conversation that had potential but went nowhere. This video is about how to fix it. You're going to learn a simple system for asking better questions. Even if you freeze up, even if conversation feels forced, even if you never know what to say after the opener. And I'm going to hold one technique back until the very end. Because without the context that builds up to it, it won't land the way it needs to. Stay with me. Here's something that should bother you. Why does every conversation with a girl you actually like feel like it dies after 30 seconds? You open. She responds, you respond. It fizzles every time. And here's the part that stings. It's not because you're boring. It's not because you're not her type. It's because of one habit you've built without even realizing it. You answer, and you stop. She asks how your weekend was. You say, good, pretty chill. She says, same. Done. 2 people side by side communicating almost nothing. We are so efficient with language that we completely fail to be effective with it. And this is where most guys get it wrong. They think the fix is having better openers, funnier lines, a more interesting life to talk about, a sharper personality, but that's not it. Not even close. What if the real problem isn't what you're saying, but what you're not asking? Here's what I mean. Every time you answer and stop, you've just slammed a door shut on the conversation, on the tension, on whatever connection could have been building. This happens on dates. It happens over text. It happens in that first conversation where everything felt like it could go somewhere, and then somehow didn't. But here's the part that actually changes everything. There are only 2 levels to any conversation, and almost nobody ever reaches level 2. Not because they can't, because nobody showed them what it looks like. I'm going to show you right now. Why do some guys seem effortlessly magnetic in conversation, while others say all the right things and still get left unread? The answer is not what you'd expect. It's not looks, it's not confidence, it's not even what they're saying. It's automation. Your brain has been running the same conversational script since you were a teenager. She says, "How are you?" Your brain fires back the fastest answer in storage. Good, not bad. Pretty tired, lol. No thought, pure reflex. That's level 1. And here's the cold truth. Most guys never leave it. They text from level 1. They go on dates from level 1. They wonder why things never go deeper, and the answer is sitting right there. Level 2 is almost embarrassingly simple. You answer, and then you ask something back. Pretty good, actually. What about you? That's it. That's the whole upgrade. But watch what those few words actually do. She realizes you're engaged. The conversation has somewhere to go. The energy shifts. Because now it's a real exchange, not just two people trading one-word replies. But here's the part most guys still miss, even after they understand this. What happens when she actually gives you a real answer, and you have no idea what to ask next? That's not a confidence problem. That's a listening problem. And the fix for it is hiding in a word you already know. I'll show you in a second, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. Remember, we're building toward a complete system for asking better questions, even when conversation doesn't come naturally. But first, here's something that's going to sound like a coincidence. It's not. Look at the word listen. L-I-S-T-E-N. 6 letters. Now take those exact same 6 letters and rearrange them. Silent. Pause on that. Why does that matter when you're talking to someone you're attracted to? Because real listening, the kind that makes someone feel genuinely seen, requires you to go quiet. Not just physically quiet, mentally quiet. No preloading your next line. No thinking about how you're coming across. Just actually receiving what she's saying. And almost nobody does this. Here's what we do instead. She mentions she just got back from a trip. Before she finishes the sentence, your brain is already loading. Oh, cool. I've been to places too. Let me think of something interesting to say about travel. And this is exactly where most guys lose the moment. Not because they said the wrong thing. Because they stopped listening before she stopped talking. Here's what it looks like when you actually listen. She mentions she went to a concert. You ask who she saw, she tells you. You ask who she went with. She says her best friend. It was kind of a spontaneous thing. They almost didn't go. You ask what made them decide to go last minute. She lights up. Now she's telling you a story about her friendship, her personality, the kind of person she is. And you got all of that without preparing a single question in advance. Every question came from her last answer. Not from your head, from hers. That's the loop most guys never enter. And once you're in it, conversation stops feeling like work. She's engaged, she's opening up. And here's the thing she's actually feeling. Even if she can't name it, this guy actually listens. In a world full of guys performing for attention, that alone makes you different. But knowing this still isn't enough, because there's one more layer. And this is the one that explains why some guys get deep, meaningful conversations while others get polite, small talk that goes nowhere. What happens when she's enjoying the conversation, but doesn't feel that pull toward you specifically? And that's the next piece. And this is where it gets really interesting. What I'm about to show you sounds like it's about a pen. Stay with me. Because it's not about the pen at all. Why do two guys with similar personalities get completely different responses from the same girl? Here's the experiment. A pen sits on a table at a yard sale. How much is it? A nickel, maybe 75 cents. Take that exact same pen. Put it in a velvet-lined mahogany box. Place that box in a spotlit glass cabinet. Put the cabinet inside Harrods in London. Send Pierre over in white gloves to present it. Same pen. Completely different world around it. How much is it now? Here's the uncomfortable truth. The thing is never what creates the value. Everything surrounding it does. And this is where it snaps directly back to attraction. Because this is the connection most people never make. What do great questions actually do in a social interaction? They build the world around you. When you ask someone a real question and actually listen to the answer, you're not just being polite. You're creating an experience. You're making her feel like the most interesting person in the room. You're building something around the conversation that makes the whole interaction feel different from every other one she's had that week. Guys who try to impress lead with themselves. They talk about their job, their gym routine, their opinions. They're showing her the pen and hoping she sees the value. Guys who actually connect lead with curiosity. They ask, they listen, they make her feel seen. And by the time she's walking away from that conversation, she's not thinking about what he said. She's thinking about how she felt. That gap, right there, is where attraction either builds or disappears. So how do you actually put all of this together into something you can use starting today in the very next conversation you have? That's the final piece. And this is the one I've been building towards since the first second of this video. This is all still about one thing: how to ask better questions and why it's the most attractive thing you can do in any conversation. Here's where everything clicks. And I mean everything. Why do some guys walk into any room, any date, any first conversation, any DM, and immediately make people feel something? It's not their looks, it's not their status, it's not their opener. It's one decision they've made that most guys never make. They decided to be interested instead of trying to be interesting. Think about how differently that plays out. Most guys walk into a conversation trying to say the right thing, trying to sound cool, trying to give the impression that their life is exciting and worth her attention. They're managing their image in real time, which means they're barely present for the actual person in front of them. And this is the trap. Because the more you try to be interesting, the less interesting you actually become. Here's the technique. And this is what I held back at the start. It's called the Level 2 Loop. 3 steps. 30 seconds to learn, a lifetime to master. Step 1. Answer whatever she asked or said. Short, real, no performance. Step 2. Immediately ask one question back, either a natural follow-up or something that comes directly from what she just shared. Step 3. Go quiet. Don't think about what you'll say next. Don't check how you're coming across. Just listen. Actually listen, and let her answer become your next question. Repeat. Why does this actually work? Because she's not going to remember the specific things you said. She's going to remember how the conversation felt, whether she felt heard, whether she felt like you actually gave a damn about what she was saying, and not just what she looked like. That's what creates real attraction, not performance, presence. That's the whole system. Level 2 answers, real listening, curiosity over performance. And the one line I want you to carry out of this video, the one worth writing down, the one worth actually thinking about. Most guys spend their whole lives trying to be interesting. The ones who actually connect learn to be interested. Start there. Start with the next conversation. Don't stop at a one-word answer. Respond and ask something back. Watch what opens up. You know that moment when you're sitting in a meeting, at dinner with the family, or out with your friends, and then you say an idea or share your opinion or even just sit quietly and suddenly a comment full of bullying gets thrown at you out of nowhere? It could be from Chad in accounting, who thinks arrogance is a personality, or maybe from your uncle who uses the sentence, "I'm joking," like a get-out-of-jail card so he can be rude. Suddenly the whole place goes quiet and all eyes are on you like it's a social ambush. In that moment, your head fills with 1,000 lame ideas. Do you answer and make a scene? Or do you laugh a lame laugh so you seem lighthearted and not upset? Or do you stay quiet and blow up inside, and then you'll look like a statue that no matter how many bricks are thrown at it doesn't feel anything? Any of those choices is a loss. You've tried it in front of people, and the one testing you is a small, arrogant guy who thinks he's big when he puts others down. You leave the place and replay the situation in your head every single day, and invent the perfect reply you should have said, and you keep talking to yourself until someone walks into the room and thinks you've gone crazy. Anyway, you're not alone. There are a lot of us, my brother. Goal: the quest for unshakable calm. Let's be honest, the whole idea of punishing someone or getting revenge sounds exhausting. It puts you on their level. It means they're living rent-free in your head. The real goal isn't to crush them, it's to become so unshakable, so fundamentally unbothered by their nonsense, that their attempts to throw you off balance look utterly ridiculous. This isn't about learning martial arts, it's about learning mental judo. It's about using their own negative momentum against them, not by fighting back, but by gracefully stepping aside and letting them stumble over their own ego. Today, we're going on a quest. We'll build your arsenal, not with witty one-liners you'll forget in the heat of the moment, but with a complete system, a step-by-step upgrade to your social operating system. We'll start with simple defensive moves and level up to a final, powerful technique that makes you virtually immune to disrespect. By the end of this, you won't just know how to handle these people, you'll understand the game so well, they won't even want to play with you anymore. So, stay with me and focus until the end of the video because literally every minute of this video is full of information that will help you a lot in your life. The control game. Before we learn the moves, we have to understand the opponent's strategy. This isn't a random attack, it's a carefully laid trap. My golden rule for social conflict is this: whoever provokes you owns you. The moment you react emotionally, you've lost. When someone disrespects you, they're not usually seeking truth. They're launching what's called a control test. They're casting out a line baited with an insult and waiting to see if you'll bite. The emotional reaction, bait. They want you to get angry. They want your face to flush, your voice to crack. An angry response is a trophy for them. It says, I got to you. I have power over your emotions. The justification trap. They want you to defend yourself. The moment you start nervously explaining, well, actually the data show, or that's not what I meant, you've validated their attack. You've accepted their premise that you have something to prove. In the social court of opinion, the one who justifies looks guilty. The awkward laughter gambit. This is the most insidious one. By laughing along with a joke at your own expense, you communicate that you're okay with the disrespect. You're sacrificing your own dignity for a moment of social harmony, teaching them that your boundaries are, in fact, non-existent. Falling for any of these traps is like willingly walking into a cage. You hand them the key and wonder why you feel powerless. The first step to winning is to stop playing their game altogether. Your arsenal of indifference. Alright, let's gear up. We're going to level up your defenses, starting with the easiest and moving to the most advanced. Level 1. The cold smile and the pivot. This is your basic shield. Someone throws a jab like, I see you like to talk a lot about things you don't understand. Your instinct is to get defensive. Don't. Instead, you deploy the cold smile. It's not a real smile, it's a tiny, almost imperceptible lift at the corners of your mouth. It's the smile you'd give a toddler who just proudly showed you a scribble. It's calm, it's dismissive, it's devastating. You hold their gaze for a beat, letting the silence do the heavy lifting. Then you pivot. You either continue your original point as if they never spoke, or you calmly turn to someone else and ask them a completely unrelated question. Anyway, Sarah, what were you saying about the quarterly reports? You've just sent a powerful, silent message. Your comment was so insignificant, it didn't even register as an interruption. They're left holding their conversational grenade while you've already moved on. Level 2. The understated boundary. Sometimes ignoring it isn't enough. If the disrespect is persistent or crosses a clear line, you need to set a boundary. But you don't do it with anger. You do it with surgical precision. Let's say it's that uncle with the jokes. After he says something out of line, you don't address it in front of everyone. You wait. Later, when things are calmer, you approach him one-on-one and say, in a low, firm, and completely neutral tone, Hey, I know you don't mean anything by it, but I don't appreciate jokes about my career. Let's keep that off the table. No anger, no drama. Just a clear statement of fact. You're not asking for his permission. You're informing him of a rule. If he's a decent person, he'll be mortified and stop. If he gets defensive, you've learned something very important about his character, which brings us to Level 3, the strategic exit. Your presence is a privilege. It is not a right. One of the most powerful moves you can make is to simply leave. If you've calmly set a boundary and it gets ignored, or if you're in an environment where disrespect is the norm, you don't need to announce your departure. You don't need to storm out. You just go. Finish your drink, politely excuse yourself, and walk away. Walking away from a situation that is unworthy of your time is the ultimate flex. It says, I value myself and my peace more than I value your company. It's a move that requires zero confrontation but demonstrates immense self-respect. The final immunity, reframing the insult. So you've learned the moves. The smile, the pivot, the exit. These are powerful shields. But the master level skill isn't a shield at all. It's total immunity. It's a fundamental shift in how you see the world. And it's this: an insult is never about you. It's a confession. When someone insults you, they aren't describing you. They are broadcasting their own insecurities, their own fears, their own inner state. Their words are a mirror reflecting only what's inside them. Think of it this way. If someone with jaundice tells you that you look yellow, you don't argue. You just realize they see the world through the filter of their own illness. Disrespect works the exact same way. The person mocking your ambition is just confessing they are haunted by their own. Once you truly get this, the game changes forever. Their insult is no longer a weapon. It's a gift. It's a free, high-definition look into their own character flaws. You are no longer the target. You are the observer. So the next time it happens, let a secret smile bloom inside you.
Nice.
You're not being attacked. You're just watching someone shadowbox with their own demons. And that is true power. Not the ability to win the fight, but the peace that comes from realizing there was never a fight to begin with. The ultimate goal isn't to beat them. It's to make them and their opinions completely and utterly irrelevant. I didn't change how I talk. I changed one tiny social habit, and people treated me completely differently. I used to think I was a good listener. I'd nod. Stay quiet. But inside, I was just waiting for my turn to speak. Then I discovered something called active listening. But it's not what you think. Most people imagine staying quiet while someone talks. That's not it. Real active listening is a set of specific tools that make people feel more understood in 5 minutes than they've felt in years. When I started using this, everything changed. People opened up in ways they never had. They trusted me more. Some said I was the only person who really got them. In this video, I'm showing you exactly what active listening is, why it works, and the 3 specific techniques I use every day. By the end, you'll have a skill most people never learn. Here's why this matters so much. Think about your last real conversation. Did the other person actually listen? Or were they just waiting to talk about themselves? Here's the truth. Most people don't listen. They reload. They hear a few words, then spend the rest of the time thinking about their own story, their own response. This creates a massive problem. Everyone walks around feeling unheard. They talk, but nobody really gets them. Their feelings go into a void. The need to be understood is one of the most basic human needs we have. When that need isn't met, people feel frustrated, lonely, disconnected. But when you actually listen to someone, when you make them feel truly heard, everything changes. Back in the early 1900s, a psychologist named Carl Rogers figured this out. He worked with children, trying to help them with their problems. He noticed something interesting. When he stopped trying to fix everything and just listened in a specific way, the kids improved faster. They came to better conclusions on their own. They felt more confident. Their mental health got better. Rogers discovered that listening itself was therapeutic. Not advice, not solutions, just being heard in the right way. He developed something called person-centered therapy. The core was active listening. Rogers found that when people felt genuinely heard, they could solve their own problems better than any therapist could solve them. This method became revolutionary. Now it's used everywhere: therapy, schools, businesses, relationships. But here's what nobody tells you. Active listening is a skill made up of specific tools. It's not about being naturally empathetic or having some gift. It's about using techniques that anyone can learn. Let me show you the first one. Quick thing, if this is helpful, hit like and subscribe for more psychology content. Appreciate you. Tool number 1. Paraphrase what you hear. This one sounds simple, but it's powerful. After someone talks for a bit, repeat back what you think they said. Use your own words. Keep it short. Make it natural. Here's an example. Your friend says, "I've been working so hard on this project, but my boss doesn't seem to notice anything I do. I feel like I'm invisible." Most people would jump in with advice. "You should talk to your boss about it." Or, "That happened to me once, let me tell you." Instead, you paraphrase, "So you're putting in all this effort, but it feels like nobody sees it?" That's it. Simple, natural, short. What happens? 2 things. First, you make sure you actually understood them correctly. Misunderstandings can't happen because you're checking in real time. Second, they feel heard. They know you're actually paying attention. This makes them want to keep talking, keep opening up. Even Carl Rogers got things wrong sometimes when he paraphrased. That's okay. The other person corrects you, then you're both on the same page. The key is to do this naturally. Don't sound like a therapist. Don't be robotic. Just casually reflect back what they said in a way that feels like normal conversation. This is where most people mess it up. Tool number 2, show you're engaged. Here's what kills most conversations, why people can tell when you're not really there. If you just stare at them with no expression, no reaction, they'll assume you don't care. They'll stop sharing. The conversation dies right there. Think about it. Have you ever told someone something important and they just sat there, blank-faced? How did that feel? You probably didn't want to keep talking. You probably felt stupid for even bringing it up. That's what happens when engagement signals are missing. The other person feels exposed, vulnerable, like they're talking to a wall. This is where something called minimal encouragers comes in. It's just a fancy way of saying, show you're paying attention. Nod your head. Say, or yeah at the right moments. Raise your eyebrows when they say something surprising. Lean in slightly when they share something important. These tiny signals tell the other person, I'm here, I'm listening, keep going. What you're saying matters. Without these signals, even if you're listening perfectly in your head, it doesn't matter. The other person can't see inside your mind. They need external proof that you're engaged. I used to think this was fake or manipulative. It's not. It's just communication. You're showing on the outside what you're feeling on the inside. You're giving them permission to keep being vulnerable with you. Here's another thing that helps. Take your time before responding. Don't jump in the second they finish talking. Pause for a moment. This shows you're actually thinking about what they said, not just waiting for your turn. When you remove engagement signals from a conversation, you remove safety. People only open up when they feel safe. These small actions create that safety. But the next tool? This is where the real shift happens. Tool number 3. Label their emotions. This is the most powerful tool, but it's also the trickiest. After someone talks for a bit, you name the emotion you think they're feeling. You do it with empathy. You keep it simple. Your friend tells you about a rough day at work. You say, that sounds really frustrating. Your partner talks about an upcoming event. You say, you seem excited about this. Your coworker mentions a project that went wrong. You say, I bet that was disappointing. 3 things happen when you do this. First, it builds an emotional connection. They feel like you really get them, not just the facts of their story. Second, it helps them understand themselves better. Sometimes people don't even realize what they're feeling until someone else names it. They're so caught up in the situation they haven't stopped to identify the emotion. Third, they feel better. Being heard emotionally is different from being heard intellectually. It hits deeper. It's the difference between someone understanding your words and someone understanding your heart. Now, you might get the emotion wrong sometimes. That's okay. They'll correct you. Not frustrated, more just tired of it, But even when you're wrong, the fact that you tried to understand their feelings still matters. It shows you care about more than just the surface level. Keep it casual. Don't overdo it. You're not diagnosing them. You're just showing you care about how they feel, not just what they're saying. One more thing. Don't rush to label emotions. Let them talk for a bit first. Build context. Then when you name what they're feeling, it lands with real weight because you've been paying attention the whole time. When I started using these tools, conversations got completely different. People said things to me they'd never said before. Deep stuff, real stuff. They told me secrets. They shared feelings they'd been holding back for years. But here's what surprised me most. The conversations became more interesting. When people feel safe to be honest, they say the most random, authentic things. It's fun. It's genuine. It's not the surface-level small talk most people are stuck in. My relationships got stronger. People trusted me more. They wanted my opinion because they knew I actually listened before giving it. They came to me with problems because they knew I wouldn't just dismiss their feelings or immediately try to fix everything. I became someone people felt comfortable around, not because I was trying to be likable, but because I made them feel seen. There's something deeply powerful about that. In a world where everyone's talking but nobody's listening, being the person who actually hears people makes you stand out in a way nothing else can. But there's one more thing I learned that ties all of this together. It's the hardest part, but it's also the most important. Here's the secret that makes everything else work. You have to actually care. I know that sounds obvious, but here's what I mean. You can learn all the techniques in the world. You can paraphrase perfectly. You can show engagement. You can label emotions like a professional therapist. But if you don't genuinely want to understand the other person, none of it matters. People can feel the difference between someone using techniques and someone who actually cares. They can sense when you're going through the motions versus when you're really there with them. There's a famous quote, "You can make more friends in 2 months by becoming interested in other people than you can in 2 years by trying to get other people interested in you." That's the real foundation of active listening. It's not a trick. It's not manipulation. It's genuine curiosity about another human being. Here's what helped me. I started looking for what made each person interesting. Everyone has something unique about them. A weird hobby, an unusual perspective, a hidden skill, a crazy story. Most people never share these things because nobody ever asks the right questions or listens long enough to hear them. When I approached conversations with real curiosity, active listening became easy. I wanted to paraphrase because I wanted to make sure I understood. I showed engagement because I was engaged. I labeled emotions because I cared how they felt. This is what Carl Rogers discovered all those years ago. When you approach someone with genuine interest and empathy, when you create a space where they feel safe to be themselves, they open up. They grow, they heal. The techniques I showed you, they're not tricks to fake caring. They're tools to help you express real care more clearly. They're ways to show someone, I see you, I hear you, you matter. And here's the thing nobody tells you. When you start genuinely caring about understanding people, your own life gets better too. You stop being so focused on yourself. You stop needing to prove anything. You realize how fascinating people are when you actually pay attention. You become the kind of person others want to be around. Not the loudest, not the funniest, not the one with all the stories, but the one who makes people feel like they matter. That's real charisma. That's real connection. That's what changes how people treat you. Start with one technique. Use it in your next conversation. Notice what happens, then add another. Practice. Get better? Active listening is a skill. The more you do it, the easier it gets. Eventually, it becomes who you are. And when it does, you'll notice something. People treat you differently. They seek you out. They value your presence. Not because you're the most impressive person in the room, but because you're the person who actually listens. Have you ever walked into a room and felt completely invisible? Like everyone else just knows how to connect, but you're stuck on the sidelines? Here's what nobody tells you. The people who seem naturally magnetic aren't born that way. They're using 5 specific techniques that make others want to talk to them first. But here's the twist. The most powerful one is something you're probably doing wrong right now. And I'm saving it for the very end because once you fix it, everything changes. I'm going to show you exactly how to make people notice you, approach you, and actually want to start conversations without you having to force anything or fake confidence. By the end of this video, you'll understand why you've been invisible and exactly what to do about it. The final technique is the game changer, so stick around because that's where the real magic happens. Let me start with something that changed everything for me. I used to sit at coffee shops, scrolling through my phone, waiting for someone to notice me. It never happened. I'd go to parties and stand in corners, hoping someone would start a conversation. They didn't. I thought maybe I wasn't interesting enough, or funny enough, or good-looking enough. But then I discovered something shocking. The problem wasn't me, it was what I was doing in the first 3 seconds. The first 3 seconds. When you walk into any space, people make a judgment about you instantly. Not in minutes, not after talking to you. In 3 seconds. Most people do what I used to do. They walk in with their head down, eyes on their phone, or scanning the floor. They think they're being humble or not showing off. However, what they're actually doing is sending a giant signal that says, "Don't talk to me. I'm not available. Leave me alone." Here's what magnetic people do differently. They walk in with their head level, not up like they're arrogant, just level. They look around the room calmly, like they belong there. Therefore, people see them as confident and approachable. But here's the part most people miss. The eyes. When you make eye contact with someone, even for just a second, and give a tiny smile or nod, you're opening a door. You're saying, "I see you and I'm friendly." That small gesture plants a seed in their mind. Later, they'll feel comfortable approaching you because you already acknowledge them. I tested this at a bookstore. Instead of hiding behind shelves like usual, I walked in, looked around naturally, made quick eye contact with a few people, and smiled slightly. Within 10 minutes, someone asked me about the book I was holding. That had never happened before. The difference? I stopped being invisible on purpose. The body language mistake. Now let's talk about what happens after those first 3 seconds, because even if you nail the entrance, you can ruin everything with your body. I learned this the hard way at a workshop. The instructor asked me to stand in front of everyone. I stood how I always did, hands in pockets, shoulders slightly forward, weight on one leg. Then he asked the group what they thought of me. The answers hurt. Closed off. Nervous. Doesn't want to be bothered. I wasn't trying to look that way. However, my body was telling a story I didn't mean to tell. The instructor showed me something simple. He said, "Take your hands out of your pockets. Let your arms hang naturally at your sides or rest one on the table. Pull your shoulders back just a little, not stiff, just open. Take a breath and relax your face." I did it. I felt awkward at first, like I was acting. But then he asked the group again. This time they said, more approachable, confident, like a different person. Here's what I realized. Your body talks before your mouth does. If your arms are crossed, you look defensive. If you're hunched over your phone, you look busy or uninterested. If you're tense, people can feel it from across the room. But when your body is open and relaxed, people read you as safe and welcoming. They feel like they can approach you without being rejected. Therefore, they do. After that workshop, I started paying attention to my posture everywhere. In cafes, I'd sit with my chest open, arms visible, shoulders relaxed. At events, I'd stand with my weight balanced, not leaning against walls or hiding in corners. The change was incredible. People started sitting next to me, asking me questions, including me in conversations, all because my body stopped pushing them away. The curiosity secret. Now here's where it gets interesting. Once someone does approach you, or once you decide to start a conversation, there's a secret weapon that makes people instantly like you. And no, it's not being funny or interesting. It's being curious about them. Most people think they need to have great stories or clever things to say. Therefore, they prepare talking points in their head and wait for their turn to speak. However, that's the wrong approach. Magnetic people do the opposite. They ask questions. Real questions. Not interview questions, not surface-level stuff like, "What do you do?" They ask things that show genuine interest. Here's an example. I was at a meetup sitting next to someone I'd never met. Instead of waiting awkwardly, I asked, "What brought you here tonight?" Simple question, but then I listened. Really listened. He told me about a project he was working on. Instead of jumping in with my own story, I asked, "What's the hardest part about that?" His whole face lit up. He said, "Finally, someone who actually gets it." We talked for an hour. He asked for my contact info before leaving. Why? Because I made him feel heard. I made him feel important, and people are drawn to anyone who makes them feel that way. Here's the trick. When you're genuinely curious, you don't have to perform. You don't have to be the smartest or funniest person in the room. You just have to care about what the other person is saying. Ask follow-up questions. Nod, react naturally, let them talk. People will remember you not because of what you said, but because of how you made them feel. If this is hitting home, hit the like button so more people find it. The silence power. This next one surprised me more than anything. I used to think that to be magnetic, you had to fill every silence. You had to keep talking, keep entertaining, keep proving you were worth someone's time. However, I discovered the opposite is true. Magnetic people are comfortable with silence. They don't panic when a conversation pauses. They don't rush to fill empty space with nervous chatter. They just exist calmly, and somehow that makes people want to talk to them even more. I tested this at a library. I sat reading quietly, not forcing anything, not looking around desperately for someone to notice me. I was just present, calm, slightly smiling because I was enjoying my book. A woman sat down nearby. A few minutes later, she leaned over and said, "Is that book good? I've been thinking about reading it." I didn't do anything to make her talk to me. However, my comfortable silence made me seem approachable, not needy or desperate. There's something magnetic about someone who doesn't need attention but is open to connection. Here's why this works. When you're comfortable with yourself, people sense it. They don't feel pressure around you. They don't worry about awkwardness or having to entertain you. Therefore, they relax, and relaxed people are open people. So next time you're somewhere public, try this. Put your phone away, sit comfortably, don't look around anxiously, just be present, with a slight natural expression on your face, like you're content. You'll be amazed how many people will suddenly find a reason to talk to you. The ultimate technique. Now here's the final piece, the one that ties everything together, the technique that makes all the others work even better. It's this: stop waiting for people to validate you. Here's what I mean. Most people who feel invisible are actually stuck in a loop. They walk into a room hoping someone will notice them. They stand there waiting for someone to approach them. They measure their worth by whether others choose to talk to them. However, magnetic people flip the script. They walk in assuming they belong. They don't wait for permission to exist in the space. They don't need external validation to feel okay. Therefore, they radiate a different energy, an energy that says, "I'm fine whether you talk to me or not, but I'm here and open if you want to." That energy is what makes people curious. That energy is what draws them in. When you stop needing attention, you start attracting it. When you stop performing for approval, people actually want to give it to you. It's the strangest paradox, but it's true. So here's what you do. Walk into your next social situation with this mindset. I'm here to enjoy myself, to be present, to connect if it happens naturally, but I don't need anyone's approval to feel good about being here. Because the moment you stop chasing attention is the moment everyone starts noticing you. Someone close to you is lying right now. Maybe it's about where they were last night. Maybe it's about money. Maybe it's something bigger. The FBI has spent decades perfecting techniques to catch liars in interrogation rooms. By the end of this video, you'll know their most powerful methods so you can spot deception before it costs you. I'm going to show you 9 techniques that FBI agents use every single day. However, the last one is so effective that once you learn it, you'll never look at conversations the same way again. And the scary part? You've already fallen for one of these lies today without realizing it. So let's begin. The question that traps liars. Most people ask the wrong questions when they suspect a lie. If you ask something broad like, "How was your night?" the other person can dodge details easily. They can give you a vague answer that tells you nothing. If you ask, "You got home early, right?" you're actually giving them an easy escape route. They can just say yes and move on. Therefore, FBI agents use a different approach that changes everything. They ask open questions built on negative assumptions. For example, instead of asking your friend, "Did you go out last night?" say, "What kept you out so late last night?" Instantly, you'll see their mind scramble for details. Notice what happens here. You're not asking if they went out, you're assuming they did. This forces the person to either admit the truth or build a detailed lie. The more details they give, the easier it becomes to catch them slipping up later. Their brain has to work harder to keep track of the story. However, don't make it sound like an attack. Keep your tone casual and curious. Act like you're just making conversation. You want them talking freely, not shutting down and getting defensive. The moment they feel attacked, they'll stop talking completely. The 5-second window. Right after you ask a question, you have exactly 5 seconds. This is your window to catch the truth. In those 5 seconds, watch everything. Their face, their hands, their voice, their eyes. Every tiny movement matters. After 5 seconds pass, their brain has already adjusted. They've had time to think and calculate their response. They've had time to build their defenses. Therefore, you can't trust what happens after that window closes. The honest reaction is gone. But here's the key that most people don't understand. One weird behavior means nothing. Maybe they always touch their nose when thinking. Maybe looking away is just their habit. Maybe they're naturally fidgety. However, if you spot 2 or more suspicious signs in those 5 seconds, that's called a cluster. That cluster tells you something is very wrong. Look for things like contradictions in their words, dodging your question completely, touching their face repeatedly, or breaking eye contact suddenly. When these pile up in 5 seconds, you've likely caught a lie. The person's body is betraying them before their mind can catch up. Reading the baseline. But here's where most people mess up completely. Before FBI agents ask the hard questions, they do something smart. They ask easy, neutral questions first. Questions about the weather, about their day, about anything harmless? Why? Because they're studying how this person acts when they're relaxed and telling the truth. They watch tone of voice, posture, hand movements, speech patterns. They notice everything. This is the baseline. It's like taking a photograph of someone's normal behavior. Once you know someone's baseline, any change becomes obvious. If someone usually looks you in the eye but suddenly stares at the floor when you ask where they were, that shift matters. That's not their normal. If their voice usually sounds steady but starts cracking on certain topics, pay attention. If they normally use their hands when talking but suddenly go completely still, something changed. The baseline shows you what normal looks like. Therefore, anything abnormal becomes a red flag you can't miss. Without knowing the baseline, you're just guessing. With it, you're reading them like a book. The double trap. Here's a simple trick that catches liars off guard every single time. Ask about the same event twice, but change the angle slightly. First time, ask, "You went to the gym yesterday, right?" They say yes. They feel safe. Wait a few minutes. Talk about something else. Let them relax. But then circle back with, "So what exercises did you do at the gym yesterday?" If they hesitate or their answer doesn't match the first response, you've found an inconsistency. Liars struggle to keep their story straight across multiple questions. They might remember the big lie but forget the small details they made up along the way. Truth tellers don't have this problem. If they actually went to the gym, they'll tell you exactly what they did without hesitation. However, a liar has to invent details on the spot. They have to remember what they already said. They have to make sure the new details fit the old ones. It's too much mental work. Words that give them away. This next trick is one even trained interrogators rely on. When people lie, they choose words differently. They become more careful, more vague. You'll hear phrases like, "I think," "maybe," "probably," or "I guess." These words give them escape routes. If you challenge them later, they can say, "Well, I wasn't sure." They never committed to anything concrete. However, this alone doesn't prove lying. Some people just speak this way naturally. They're cautious in general. Therefore, watch for when these vague words appear. If they show up only during certain parts of the story, especially the important parts, that's your signal to dig deeper. If someone is confident about the small details but suddenly vague about the crucial moment, something's wrong. Their language is protecting them. The topic dodge. We've all been lied to before, a friend, a coworker, even someone we trusted. Watch what happens when you touch a sensitive subject. If someone suddenly tries changing the topic, they're uncomfortable. Maybe they ask you a question about something completely different. Maybe they remember something urgent they need to tell you. Maybe they suddenly notice something in the room. This dodge is a defense mechanism. They're trying to steer you away from dangerous ground before they accidentally reveal something they want hidden. The redirect is their shield. If these tricks are already blowing your mind, make sure you hit like because we're only halfway through the FBI's best-kept secrets. Also, drop a comment below telling me which technique surprised you most. Your engagement helps more people learn how to protect themselves. Now, let's keep going. Breaking their focus. Lying takes mental energy, serious mental energy. The person has to invent details, remember what they already said, and avoid contradicting themselves. Their brain is working overtime just to keep the story alive. Therefore, if you interrupt them right in the middle of their story with a completely different question, you increase that mental load even more. Try this. While they're explaining something, suddenly ask, "Wait, what were you doing right before that happened?" This forces them to reorganize their entire story in their head. They rewind, they switch tracks, and that's when cracks start to show. Watch what happens next. If they seem confused or if they restart with details that don't match what they said before, you've likely caught them in a lie. The best moment to interrupt is when they're deep in their narrative, fully focused on keeping their story straight. After the interruption, just say, "Okay, sorry, keep going." But then watch very carefully how they continue. Do they pick up exactly where they left off? Or do they restart from a different point? Do the details still match? The false detail test. This technique is sneaky but incredibly powerful. Slip a wrong detail into the conversation on purpose. Say something like, "You said it was Tuesday, but wasn't the store closed that day?" Here's what happens next. Someone telling the truth will correct you immediately. They'll say, "No, it was Wednesday," or "The store was actually open." They're confident because they know what really happened. However, a liar often agrees with your false detail. Why? Because they're afraid that disagreeing with you might make their whole story fall apart. They'd rather accept your version than risk looking suspicious by pushing back. They think you know something they don't. They think you're testing them, so they go along with whatever you say. This reveals the lie instantly. The timeline trap. Ask for specific times. What time did you leave? What time did you arrive? People lying struggle with timelines because they're making them up as they go. Their answers often don't make sense mathematically. If they say they left at 8, arrived at 8:30, but the drive actually takes an hour, something's wrong. The math doesn't add up. If they claim they were somewhere for 20 minutes, but describe activities that would take an hour, the timeline breaks. Timelines don't lie. Numbers don't lie. Therefore, when someone's timeline has holes, their story probably does too. Truth always fits reality. Lies never do. The final piece. Now here's what most people miss completely. These techniques work best when you combine them. Use the baseline to spot changes. Use the 5-second rule to catch clusters of deception. Use timeline questions and double traps together. Stack them, layer them. However, there's one more thing that matters more than all of these techniques combined. Your instinct. Deep down, you usually know when something feels off. These FBI techniques just give you proof of what your gut already suspected. Trust that feeling. When multiple techniques point to the same conclusion, you're not being paranoid. You're being smart. You're being observant. Remember that person who was lying to you at the start of this video? Now, you know exactly how to catch them. The truth always leaves fingerprints. Someone insults you in front of others. Your heart races. Your face flushes. Every cell in your body screams to defend yourself. However, the person next to you just heard the same insult and didn't even blink. Same words, same situation. Two completely different reactions. What did they know that you didn't? There's a psychological technique used by therapists to deal with toxic people that most of us have never heard of. It's not about being tough. It's not about suppressing your emotions. It's about understanding how conflict actually works and why most of us are playing the game completely wrong. In this video, I'm going to show you why people try to provoke you in the first place, the hidden pattern behind every toxic interaction, and at the end, I'll reveal the exact method that makes you psychologically unbotherable. But first, you need to understand what's really happening when someone attacks you. Here's what nobody tells you about conflict. Most arguments aren't about winning. They're about feeding. Think about the last time someone provoked you. Maybe they made a passive-aggressive comment. Maybe they questioned your intelligence or mocked something you care about. Therefore, you felt that surge of emotion, right? That need to respond, to correct them, to prove your point. That feeling, that's exactly what they wanted. Because here's the truth. Toxic people don't attack you because they hate you. They attack you because they're starving for something they can't create themselves. Emotional energy, validation, a sense of power. When you react, when you engage, when you fight back, you're not standing up for yourself, you're feeding them. Every sharp reply you give, every frustrated explanation, every moment you spend justifying your worth to them is fuel. You think you're defending yourself, however, you're actually giving them exactly what they came for. Your attention, your time, your emotional investment. Like that coworker who raises his voice in meetings knowing you'll defend yourself. But then one day, you stay silent. He freezes mid-sentence. The game ends. Because without your reaction, there's nothing left to play. They throw the same bait over and over because they know you'll bite. A provocative text at midnight. A subtle insult wrapped in a joke. A question designed to make you explain yourself. They don't want answers, they want sparks. But then something interesting happens. You meet someone who doesn't take the bait. Someone who hears the insult and treats it like background noise. Someone who can sit in a room full of passive aggression and remain completely at ease. They're not ignoring the toxicity, they're just refusing to participate in it. What's their secret? They understand something crucial. You cannot win a game you refuse to play. But if reacting isn't the answer, what is? So if reacting only makes things worse, why do we keep doing it? Because we've been taught that silence equals weakness. We've been told that if you don't defend yourself, people will walk all over you. That if you let an insult slide, you're basically agreeing with it. Therefore, we engage. We explain. We argue. We try to make them understand. However, here's the problem. You cannot reason with someone who's emotionally invested in misunderstanding you. Think about it. How many times have you lost your peace just to prove you were right? And how many times did you actually win? In those heated moments, they're not listening to your words. They're feeding off your emotion. The more you explain yourself, the more power you give them. Every justification is another thread they can pull. Every defense is another opening for attack. You think you're standing your ground, but you're actually handing them the map to your vulnerabilities. And here's what makes it worse. The people who provoke you most are often the ones who know you best. They know which buttons to push. They know what you're insecure about. They know exactly how to phrase something to get under your skin. An ex who texts you knowing you'll analyze it for hours. A family member who brings up your failures disguised as concern. These people fish with emotions, not words. They're just searching for something that shakes you because that makes them feel in control. If this is hitting home, like and subscribe because the next part changes everything. So what's the alternative? How do you protect yourself without becoming cold or disconnected? You become strategically uninteresting. This is the part most people get wrong about detachment. They think it means shutting down, building walls, cutting people off. However, that's just another form of reaction. True power isn't in how loudly you can respond or how dramatically you can exit. It's in how little someone's chaos can move you. Be like Wi-Fi. If they can't connect to you, they can't drain your energy. Imagine this. Someone throws an insult your way, expecting a reaction. But instead of defending yourself, instead of arguing back, you respond with something completely neutral. Interesting perspective, or I hear you? Or sometimes just a simple okay and nothing more. What just happened? You refused to give them the emotional charge they were seeking. You didn't attack back, so they can't play victim. You didn't defend yourself, so they have nothing to argue against. You became present but unreactive, visible but unengaging. This isn't about being passive. This is about being selective with your energy. Because here's what happens when you stop feeding toxic patterns. They eventually starve. The person who used to get a rise out of you with a single comment now has to work harder. Therefore, they escalate, trying to provoke a bigger reaction. But when that doesn't work either, something shifts. They get bored, they move on. They find someone else who will give them the drama they crave. When you stop reacting to sarcasm or provocation, you realize you've just won back an entire day of peace. You didn't have to fight. You didn't have to explain. You just refused to participate in a game designed to drain you. But how do you actually do this when your emotions are screaming? That's where the method comes in. All right, here's the actual technique. The thing therapists teach their clients when dealing with narcissists, manipulators, or anyone who thrives on emotional chaos. It's called the gray rock method. The concept is simple but powerful. You make yourself as uninteresting and unresponsive as a gray rock. No emotional highs, no defensive lows. Just calm, neutral, almost boring responses. Here's how it works in practice. When someone tries to provoke you, you respond with minimal emotion and information. Short answers, neutral tone. No explanations that they can twist. No justifications they can attack. Why are you always like this? I don't know. Don't you have anything to say? Not really. You're just going to ignore me? I'm listening, I just don't have much to add. You're not being rude. You're not being dismissive. You're simply refusing to be the source of drama they're seeking. And here's the beautiful part. This works because it removes the reward they're chasing. However, there's a critical piece most people miss. This isn't about suppressing your emotions. It's about choosing where you invest them. You can feel everything, the anger, the frustration, the hurt, but you don't have to perform those feelings for someone who will weaponize them. Real strength isn't reacting fast, it's choosing not to react at all. Save your depth for people who've earned it. Save your vulnerability for relationships that honor it. Save your explanations for those who actually want to understand. Everyone else? They get the gray rock. Drop a comment if you've ever dealt with this kind of drama. I read every single one. When you master this, something profound happens. People are still talking, still trying to provoke you. But then the strange thing is, you don't feel a thing. Their voices fade. And for the first time, you can actually breathe. You stop being controlled by other people's chaos. That coworker who used to ruin your entire day with one comment? Now they're just background noise. That family member who could always push your buttons? They're still pushing, but nothing's happening. You're not reacting because you finally realized their opinion of you is not your emergency. Their need for drama is not your responsibility. Their inability to regulate their emotions is not your problem to solve. This is what true peace looks like. Not the absence of conflict, but the presence of choice. You choose what affects you. You choose what deserves your energy. You choose who gets access to your inner world. The most powerful reaction is no reaction. And here's the twist nobody sees coming. When you become unbotherable, you become unstoppable. Because the person who can't be baited into drama, who can't be manipulated through emotion, who refuses to waste energy on pointless battles, that person has an unfair advantage in life. While others are exhausted from arguing, defending, and proving themselves, you're focused on what actually matters. While they're stuck in cycles of reaction, you're building something real. That's the ultimate power move. Not fighting better, but refusing to fight at all. You become the gray rock, solid, unmoved, unaffected, and in your stillness, you find a strength that no argument could ever give you. When you stop playing, the game ends. Their problem isn't you, it's that you stopped feeding them. Next time someone tries to pull you into chaos, remember, you don't owe anyone a reaction. Stay solid, stay still, be the gray rock. And if this message shifted something in you, hit subscribe. Make calm your default. The one who can't be triggered can't be controlled. Picture this. You're at a party, someone approaches you, and after, "Hi, how are you?" your brain just freezes. That awkward silence stretches forever while you desperately search for literally anything to say. Sound familiar? What if I told you this happens because your brain is actually working too well, not because you're boring? Stick around because I'm about to flip everything you think you know about conversation on its head. Here's the truth nobody talks about. You don't have a nothing to say problem. You have a too much to filter problem. Your mind generates hundreds of potential responses every minute, but there's a little voice in your head going, "Nope, that's weird. They won't care about that. That's too random." This internal critic is literally stealing your words before they leave your mouth. But what if there was a way to turn off that critic? What if you could access all those thoughts your brain keeps rejecting? Today, I'm going to show you exactly how to do that, plus give you a complete toolkit that'll make you the person everyone wants to talk to. Let's start with the most game-changing technique I've ever discovered. I call it the 5-second decision rule, and it's going to sound almost too simple to work. Here's how it works. When someone says something to you, you have exactly 5 seconds to respond with whatever pops into your head first. Not the second thought, not the better version. The first thing your brain serves up. Why does this work? Because your first instinct is usually more authentic and interesting than anything your filter would approve. When someone mentions they just bought a new car, your first thought might be, "Oh, I wonder if they got a good deal," or "My cousin just got scammed at a dealership." Don't analyze which one sounds better. Just pick one and go with it. The scam story might lead to a fascinating conversation about negotiation tactics or family drama. The deal question might uncover their research process or financial philosophy. Both are gold mines, but only if you actually say them instead of filtering them out. Try this today. Set a mental timer, 5 seconds max. You'll be amazed at how much more natural and engaging your conversations become when you stop trying to be perfect. Now, here's something that might blow your mind. The best conversationalists aren't the smartest people in the room. They're the ones who ask the best questions. And the secret to great questions? Strategic ignorance. Strategic ignorance means playing dumb about things you actually understand pretty well. When someone mentions they're a graphic designer, instead of showing off what you know about design software, try, "That sounds creative. What's a typical day like for you?" Or, "What's the weirdest project you've ever worked on?" This technique is powerful because it does two things simultaneously. It makes the other person feel like an expert, which feels amazing, and it gives you insider information you genuinely wouldn't have learned otherwise. I learned this from watching late-night talk show hosts. They're talking to A-list celebrities, experts, authors, people way more accomplished than most of us will ever meet. But notice what the best hosts do? They ask questions a curious 12-year-old would ask. How does that even work? What's that like? Has anything crazy ever happened? The magic isn't in showing how much you know. It's in showing how much you want to learn. People will literally queue up to talk to someone who makes them feel interesting and important. Here's where things get really interesting. Every story someone tells you contains multiple conversation threads, like a spiderweb of potential topics. Most people grab one thread, and when it breaks, they panic. I'm going to teach you to see all the threads. Let's say someone tells you, "I was supposed to meet my friend Sarah for brunch yesterday, but she canceled last minute because her dog got sick, so I ended up trying that new Korean place alone." Most people would respond to just one element, maybe, "Oh no, is the dog okay?" But look at all the conversation gold you're missing. The friendship dynamic with Sarah, their feelings about eating alone, Korean food experiences, weekend routine changes, pet ownership stories, restaurant exploration habits. Here's the game changer. Don't just identify these threads, acknowledge multiple ones in your response. Try something like, "Oh wow, sick dog drama," and discovering new food solo. That's quite a plot twist for a Sunday. How was the Korean place? And more importantly, is the dog all right? This technique shows you're actually listening to their whole story, not just waiting for your turn to talk. Plus, it gives them multiple directions to take the conversation, making it flow naturally instead of feeling forced. Now, let's talk about the most powerful conversation tool you'll ever master, the Curiosity Cascade. This is where you turn one question into a chain reaction of discovery. Instead of asking one question and then jumping to your own story, you ask follow-up questions that go deeper into their experience. It's like being a detective, but for interesting life details instead of crimes. Here's how it works. Someone says, "I just got back from a work conference in Denver." Level 1. How was the conference? Level 2. What was the most surprising thing you learned? Level 3. How are you planning to use that in your current projects? Level 4. Do you think your company will actually implement changes, or is it one of those great ideas that disappear situations? See what happened there? We went from surface-level small talk to them sharing real insights about their work environment, company culture, and personal frustrations or excitement. That's where real connection happens. The key is genuine curiosity, not curiosity as a technique, but actually being fascinated by how other people navigate their lives. Everyone has developed unique strategies for dealing with common human problems. Your job is to uncover those strategies. All right, let's get practical. Even with all these techniques, sometimes your mind will go blank. It happens to everyone, including professional speakers and comedians. The difference is having a mental emergency kit ready to deploy. Here are 5 conversation lifelines that work in almost any situation. The environmental observation, comment on something in your shared space. This playlist is actually perfect for this kind of weather. Or, "I love how they've decorated this place. It feels like someone's living room." Take something obvious and question it. "You seem like someone who has strong opinions about coffee." Or, "I bet you have some stories about dealing with difficult customers." The hypothetical. Pose an interesting what-if scenario. If you could redesign your job from scratch, what would you change first? Or, what would you do if you won like $50,000 tomorrow? Not life-changing money, but enough to be interesting. The callback. Return to something they mentioned earlier. "Actually, I keep thinking about what you said about your sister's business. How did she even get started with that?" The genuine compliment. Notice something authentic and ask about it. "You seem really passionate when you talk about teaching. What got you into that field?" Keep 2 to 3 of these ready at all times. They're not conversation tricks. They're genuine ways to connect when your brain temporarily goes offline. Finally, let's talk about something nobody teaches but everyone needs to know. How to end conversations without making it weird. The perfect exit formula has 3 parts: appreciation, reason, and bridge. Appreciation. This has been really interesting. I had no idea marketing psychology was so complex. Reason. I should probably grab some coffee before they close. Bridge. I'd love to hear how that project turns out. Mind if I connect with you on LinkedIn? This works because you're acknowledging the value of the conversation, giving a non-personal reason for leaving, and creating a pathway for future connection. No one feels rejected, and you leave the door open. Remember, ending a conversation well is just as important as starting one. It's the last impression you leave, and it determines whether that person would be excited to talk to you again. Look, here's the bottom line. Conversation isn't about being the most interesting person in the room. It's about being the most interested person in the room. It's about creating space for authentic human connection in a world that's becoming increasingly digital and disconnected. Thanks for watching, Sia.